Hello viewers, my name's Jordan Golson, and this is the new Ford Bronco Raptor. And I had 2 days with this truck. I had 1 day of on-road where we drove up into the mountains and curvy roads on pavement. And then yesterday we went to Johnson Valley out in the desert, and we did some rock crawling, we did some very fast desert running, and I tested this not quite to its limits, but pretty close to my own, and I came away massively impressed. Now, I really liked the new Bronco when I reviewed that last year, and you can watch that video here on my friend Tim's channel. It's incredibly good off-road, it's incredibly good on-road. It's just a really nice both everyday SUV and an off-road explorer. And this one takes that winning formula and cranks it up to 1,000,000. So this has a whole bunch of upgrades from the regular Bronco, and I'm gonna go through some of them, which are the big ones. For one, there's a new engine, which is actually borrowed from the Ford Explorer. It's a 3-liter V6 twin-turbo, what Ford calls EcoBoost, 418 horsepower, 440 pound-feet of torque, and that is a more than ample amount of power. Upgraded the suspension with Fox shocks. Those are similar to the ones in the Ford F-150 Raptor. Those are adjustable, so you've got a sport mode, an off-road mode, a normal mode, so it can get firmer, it can get softer, whatever you need. It's wider than the regular Bronco, 9.8 inches wider, so you've got that widened stance, and that is good for that sort of high-speed desert running, things like that, because this is patterned after an Ultra 4 desert racing truck, and they wanted it to be a racing truck for the road in the same way that the Ford F-150 Raptor is a trophy truck for the road from races like Baja 1000. And so this is the same Raptor, same name, same sort of inspiration of like high-speed desert running. And there's a bunch of other upgrades to the brakes and things like that. But maybe the biggest change is to the tires. This has standard 37-inch BF Goodrich KO2s. They're extremely big, they're extremely good, and they help both the performance on-road and off-road, and they make it much more comfortable. As you're driving along, if you've got rough road surfaces, this ends up being incredibly comfortable. Driving it on the road, this truck is way better than it has any right to be. We were going through twisty turns and off camber and all kinds of stuff up in the mountains on some really twisty roads that would have been super fun in a sports car, and they were super fun in this. So you've got the GOAT mode selector down here, and that stands for goes over any type of terrain, and there are a number of terrain types that you can use it on. So you've got normal, and then you go left and you've got sport. And so if you put it in sport, firms up the suspension, changes the shift points, changes the exhaust node, changes the weight of the steering wheel, things like that. And then you can go to the left and you get tow haul and slippery, and then to the right you got the off-road mode. So you got off-road and Baja and rock crawl. And so all those change all kinds of things about the four-wheel drive system, the locking differentials, all that stuff. For now, we'll leave it in normal, but just know that you can spin this and start changing all of the settings, even if you don't really know anything about off-roading. Between the buttons and the switches and all that, you don't need to know that much about off-roading. And now, I know the off-road purists are going to be very upset about this and say, well, you should go out and you should know how to off-road and you shouldn't be And that's true. You should go out with someone who is experienced. But if you buy the Bronco Raptor, or really any off-road Bronco with like the Sasquatch package or something like that, you've got the GOAT mode selectors and you've got the buttons up here, and you don't really have to think that much about, okay, do I lock the rear diffs when I'm going off-road? I can't remember. I don't know what the stay bar release button does. No, you just put it in off-road, and it'll start making all the changes for you and put you in for high and start doing all that stuff. If you put it in rock crawl, it'll automatically put it in for low, because there's, buttons for that, and it just takes care of everything for you. I really like that. It makes life easier. And then if you want to go in and start changing all the stuff individually, you can start pressing buttons and disconnect the stay bar and lock the front diff or the rear diff, or put it in Baja mode manually, because you've got buttons on the steering wheel for the steering and for the suspension and for the exhaust. And then you've got a special R button that you can store a custom Raptor mode just for you. So when you put it in sport, which is what I was doing when I was driving on road, it is better performing than it has any right to be. This is a large lifted off-roader. It's incredibly good in the turns, and it feels planted. There's hardly any body roll, and it's not just that you don't feel it. I didn't see it on the other vehicles as well when I was watching them. It's really extraordinary. The chassis is extremely well sorted. The steering is really good. The tires are really good. The suspension is excellent. You just set it to however you want and then forget it and go. Drop it into sport, go be enthusiastic on the road. Drop it into off-road, go be enthusiastic off-road. It works great. On the outside, there are a bunch of new Raptor touches. For one is the new hood, which has 2 functional air extractors, though they were not entirely precise as to how much of a difference it really made. You've got more air extractors on the sides of the hood. Most importantly, it looks phenomenal. On the front, the daytime running lights are now amber, like they are in the F-150 Raptor, and that means the easiest way to tell a Bronco Raptor from a regular Bronco at a distance is looking at the orange daytime running lights. Seeing them in my rearview mirror on our drive the other day, it gave you chills just seeing the orange. It was so cool, and it's unlike anything else on the road. You can also tell the Bronco Raptor from the regular Bronco by the enormous fender flares sticking out over the tires. The front grille doesn't say Bronco, it says Ford, F-O-R-D, in black. You've got the 3 amber width indicators up in the middle, and then you've got 2 more on each of the wing mirrors, which is pretty cool. So those aren't on the regular Bronco. It says Raptor on the hood, it says Raptor on the back, and it's going to be very obvious that this is something different from the regular Bronco. Things you might not notice unless you take the roof off is there's an extra brace here for stability, and then there's another big one at the back that actually blocks your rear visibility quite a lot. And also there's the enormous full-size spare tire in front of the back window, and so your rear visibility is narrowed to like supercar levels. Fine, whatever. It's necessary because there's the huge tire and everything. It's just kind of interesting that you really just can't see anything out the back. Those things help torsional rigidity, and that's one of the things that allows it to go so fast and so stable off-road. Inside, this is pretty standard Bronco, except they've done a bunch of things to improve it for the Raptor. For one thing, you have a different steering wheel with the little red direction steering indicator, so when you're going through the desert at 70 miles an hour, you can sort of see which way your steering wheel is going just with that. That's common in racing vehicles, and also the F-150 Raptor has that, things like that. Orange contrast stitching, Bronco wording, and then all the little accessory bits here are all orange. The grab handles are orange. The goat mode selector down here is orange. The seat belts are orange. And when you match it with the orange paint here, it looks fantastic. The Bronco Raptor is not subtle at all. There is an optional extra of a bunch of carbon fiber bits. So there's carbon fiber here around the steering wheel. That's real. You got more over here near the grab handle. You got some down here on the side of the center console. And that is all real carbon fiber, which is pretty cool as well. And that's, you know, an $1,800 extra or whatever. And we should talk about the price. It starts technically under $70,000, $69,995 something. It's as close as you can get to 70 without actually going over. In this spec, you're looking closer to $80,000, which I'm pretty sure is where every single Bronco Raptor is going to be spec'd, because if you're going to spend 70, you could spend 80, and they're going to be so hard to get that you're just going to load it up. Speaking of hard to get, the 2022 Raptor is entirely spoken for. You had to have an existing Bronco reservation and not one that had already been filled, so if you got a first edition or something, you can't get this. So you had to have the right existing Bronco reservation, convert it to a Raptor, spend a bit more money, and now wait for it, but it's totally sold out. Ford has said they will have more details about the 2023 coming later this year, and they'll open up the order book for that and start taking orders, and I suspect there will be enough Bronco buyers who are waiting to maybe sell that out too. But you might be able to find one at a Ford dealer that has one on the lot, somebody canceled their order or something like that, but I would expect you would pay a hefty Bronco Raptor market adjustment premium, $30,000 extra, $50,000 extra, something like that. Like, they're gonna get that money because this truck is so good. I'm gonna leave the ethics and morality of that aside and let folks decide that for themselves. If you really want it, you probably can do that. So those are the cool Bronco Raptor bits in here. You have the buttons on the steering wheel to adjust the exhaust and suspension and everything. So I can press this button a couple times and put it into Baja mode, and it makes the exhaust way louder. A couple interesting things about the exhaust actually, and I posted about this on TikTok and people got very upset about it. So Ford told me, oh, it has a true dual exhaust, and it's got 2 pipes coming out of the engine and running into a single muffler, and that muffler has 3 pipes coming out the back, 2 going to the tailpipes, and then 1 sort of coming out the bottom into those as well. And so what that's doing is you've got the 2 pipes, and they run into the muffler, and there are perforations in those tubes, and then they run straight out the back. And so what happens is there are 2 butterfly valves on those main pipes, and when those are closed, it forces it into quiet mode, and the tubes have perforations in them, and that air is forced out of the perforations and through the separate quiet tube, and that makes the exhaust quieter. When you put it in Sport or Baja, it opens up the butterfly valves and the air flows straight through, path of least resistance, and it is a true dual exhaust setup. So it's actually dual and single exhaust in one, which the people on the internet got all bent out of shape about. Whatever. People on the internet are going to grump about stuff. So you can go into the comments and say, oh, it doesn't have a true dual exhaust. I don't care. Whatever. This is what Ford says. Now to talk about the off-road capabilities. And I have done a bunch of off-road stuff in the regular Bronco. It's extremely capable. This thing, you get better approach angle, better departure angle, more power, more torque, more height, more bigger tires. Everything is more. We did some lower speed desert stuff, sort of driving around and just exploring. And then we did some extreme rock crawling. And the Bronco Raptor has optional beadlock capable wheels. And for our rock crawling section, Ford actually beadlocked them. And what that does is, instead of air pressure being the only thing that's holding the tires in place, the tire grips it and holds it in place, so you can't accidentally rip the tire off the rim or something like that when you're doing really hardcore stuff. And you can deflate the tires even more to make them more flobbery and grippy when you're doing your crazy rock crawling. Massively capable. It was the hardest stuff I've ever done. Could a Wrangler Rubicon have done it? Yeah, this did it. It was really easy. You got the front cameras, you got cameras everywhere, the modes. There were some very rookie people who were able to get through no problem. So extraordinarily capable on that front. If you're an experienced rock crawler, I think you'll be pretty impressed with what this can do. What a Rubicon probably can't do is some of the high-speed desert stuff that we did. They had set up a course through the desert, some ruts, a bunch of whoops, basically a desert race course like you might do in Johnson Valley if you were doing King of the Hammers. And they let us loose. And I went more than 60 miles an hour through the desert. Had to keep a good close eye to make sure you didn't get into trouble, because there were some significant obstacles out there. Everything about this truck impressed me. The only thing that didn't quite do it for me is first to second gear didn't always feel right. If you really just hammer it, it's fine, and you plow through the gears and everything's great. But when you're going slower on off-roading, it couldn't quite decide what gear it wanted to be in, whether I was in Baja or off-road or whatever. So that's the only thing that I would sort of call attention to, is that shifting between first and second gear. I don't know if the gearing is off or what. Didn't love it. But that's my only real complaint, aside from the fact that you can't get one. These are going to be so hard to find. That is a big bummer. There are not many vehicles that I would consider owning myself. The Bronco Raptor goes right in there at the top. It is something you could easily drive every day. It has these super comfy seats. They have a marine grade vinyl option that's super durable, and it has drain plugs in the floors, and you can like spray it all out with a hose. And then they also have a couple of leather options, which is what's in here. But it's incredibly comfortable. The seats are good bolstering, lumbar, the whole thing. So you could drive this every day, no problem. It's extremely comfortable on-road, and then if you want to go off-road and tear it up, you can do that too. Now, the F-150 Raptor is also my favorite F-150, so maybe I just like the hardcore racing trucks. Now, the Jeep Wrangler 392 is a lot of fun. It's got like 480 horsepower or something like that. It makes an incredible noise, but they haven't upgraded it that much over a standard Rubicon. They haven't boosted the tires. You have to get like a different package to get the 35s and all that. This has got 37s standard. It's got wider track, upgraded suspension. This thing is ready to go to bomb through and explore the desert, high-speed stuff, and the low-speed rock crawling that the Wrangler is excellent at. Which one would I get? I would get this. I would be happy to take it home. In fact, I want to steal it and not give it back. If you enjoyed this video, click here to watch another one. Thank you so much for watching. Drive safely.